It's a long story, but one you've never heard before. This story is about a place that dwells on the mountain, a place where bad things happen. And you may think you know about the bad things. You may decide you have it all figured out, but you don't, because the truth is worse than monsters or men. At first, I was upset when they told me we were moving to some little town out in the Ozarks. I remember staring at my dinner plate while I listened to my sister throw a temper tantrum unbefitting of a 14-year-old honor student. She cried, she pleaded, and then she cursed at my parents. She threw a bowl at my dad and told him it was all his fault. Mom told Whitney to calm down, but she just stormed off, slamming every door in the house on the way to her room. I secretly blamed my dad as well. I'd heard the whispers too. My dad had done something wrong. Something bad. The sheriff's department had resigned him to some little out-of-the-way county to save face. My parents didn't want me to know, but I did. I was 9, so it didn't take me too long to warm to the idea of change. It was like an adventure. New house, new school, new friends. Whitney, of course, felt the opposite. Moving to a new school at her age is hard. Moving away from her boyfriend, however, was even harder. While the rest of us packed up our things and said our goodbyes, Whitney sulked and cried and threatened to run away from home. But a month later, when we pulled up to our new house in Distring, Missouri, she was sitting right next to me, texting viciously on her phone. Thankfully, we moved over this summer, and I had 3 months of free time to explore this town. When Dad started his new job at the sheriff's office, Mom drove us around the city, commenting on this and that. The city was much smaller than St. Louis, but a lot nicer. There was no quote-unquote bad areas, and the entire town looked like something you'd see in a postcard. Drisking was built in a mountain valley, surrounded by a healthy forest land with walking trails and crystal clear lakes. We'd only been living in Distring for a week or so when our next-door neighbors came to introduce themselves, Mr. and Mrs. Landy, and their 10-year-old son, Kyle. While our parents talked and drank mimosas, I watched the lady's lanky, red-headed son hang out in the doorway, shyly eyeing the PS2 in the living room. Do you play?" I asked. He shrugged. "Not really." "Do you wanna? I just got Tekken 4. Kyle glanced at his mom, who had just been handed her third mimosa. "Yeah, sure, sweetie, go for it." And that afternoon, with ease and simplicity of our age, Kyle and I became best friends, 9 and 10 years old. We spent the cool summer mornings outside exploring the Ozarks and the hot afternoons in my living room playing the PS2. He introduced me to the only other kid in the neighborhood our age, a skinny, quiet girl named Kimber Destro. She was shy but friendly and always was up for anything. Kimber kept up with us so well that she quickly became the third wheel on our tricycle. With my dad at work all the time, my mom consumed with her new friendship, and my sister locked in her room all day, the summer was ours to take it, and we did. Kyle and Kimber showed me where all the best hiking trails were, which lakes were the best and most accessible by bike, and where the best stories were in town. By the time the first day of school rolled around September, I knew I was at home. On the last Saturday before school, Kyle and Kimber told me they were going to take me somewhere special, somewhere we hadn't been yet, the Triple Tree. "What's a triple tree?" I asked. "It's a totally awesome, totally huge tree outside in the woods," Kyle said excitingly. Psh! Whatever, Kyle. Come on, you guys. If there was a freaking treehouse, you would have showed it to me already. Nah, we wouldn't have, Kyle shook his head. "There's a ceremony for first-timers and everything." Kimber nodded eagerly in agreement, her dark orange curls bouncing off her tiny little shoulders. "Yup, it's true, Sam. If you ever enter the treehouse without the proper ceremony, you'll disappear, and then you'll die." My face fell. Now I know they were making fun of me. That's a lie, you guys. You guys are lying to me. "No, we're not," Kimber insisted. "Yeah, we'll show you," Kyle said. "We just have to get a knife for the ceremony, and we'll go." "Wait, what? Why do you need a knife? Is it a blood ceremony?" I whispered. "No way," Kimber promised. "You just have to say some words and carve your name to the triple tree." "Yup, it only takes 1 minute," Kyle agreed. "And it's a really cool tree house." "Oh yeah," Kyle promised. "It's the coolest tree house in the world." "Okay, I guess I'll do it then." Kyle insisted on using the same knife he used during his own ceremony, but we paid a price to get it. Mrs. Landy just happened to be home with her youngest son Parker, and despite Kyle's many objections, his mother insisted he take the 6-year-old brother with him. "Mom, we're going to the treehouse. It's for older kids only. Parker can't go." I don't care if you're going to see the Exorcist movie marathon. You're taking your brother with you. I need a break. Kyle, can't you understand that? And I'm sure your friends wouldn't mind. She flashed Kimber and me a challenging look. Right? No, not at all, Kimber said, and I nodded in agreement. Kyle made a loud, dramatic sigh and called his brother. Parker, put your shoes on. We're leaving now. I had met the youngest Landy several times before and found out that he was unlike his older brother in looks and in disposition. Where Kyle was wild, excitable, fireball with fire hair to match, I found Parker to be anxious, fidgety boy with small eyes and dark brown hair. We got on our bikes and made our way to the lesser-known hiking trail a few miles away. I'd asked before where the trail led when we'd ridden across it several weeks ago, but Kyle and Kimberly had given me a sigh of relief and said nowhere interesting. We pulled up to the trail ahead and leaned our bikes against the wooden signpost. West Rim Prescott War Trail. Why are there so many trails named Prescott around here, I asked. Is this Prescott Mountain or something? Kimber laughed. No, dummy, it's because of the Prescotts. You know, the family that lives in the mansion up in Fairmont? Mr. Prescott and his son Jimmy own like half the businesses in town. More than half, Kyle agreed. Which ones? Does he own the GameStop? The only store interesting I really cared about. I don't know about that one. Kyle wound up a lock around the 4 bikes and clicked the bar into place. Then spun the numbers on the dial. But like the hardware store, the pharmacy, Clinton on 2nd, and the newspaper, they own it all. Did they start this town, I asked. Nah, mining started the town, I think. I want to go home, Parker said suddenly. Parker had been quiet. I completely forgot that he was even there. You can't go home, Kyle rolled his eyes. Mom said I had to bring you. Now come on, it's only like a 2-mile walk. I want to take my bike, Parker answered. Too bad, we're going off the trail. I don't want to go off the trail. I'll stay with the bikes. Don't be such a wussy. I'm not. Kyle, be nicer, Kimber hissed. He's only 5. I'm 6, Parker objected. I'm sorry, 6. You're 6. Kimber smiled at him. Alright, fine. He can hold your hand if he wants, but he's coming. Kyle turned and started up on the trail. Parker's face fell into undignified frown, but when the charming Kimber stuck her hand out and waggled his fingers at him, he took it. Kyle was right. It wasn't a long walk. Only half a mile down the trail, and then the other half mile on the well, tread down up to a mountain path. It was a steep climb though, and by the time we got to the treehouse, I was winded. What do you think? Kyle asked excitedly. Well, I studied at the tree and I caught my breath. It's pretty awesome, I smiled. And it was. They hadn't lied to me. The treehouse was the biggest I'd ever seen. It had multiple rooms. There were actually curtains on the windows and a sign above the door that said Amber Cove 4. A rope and a ladder below that let you go right up there. I'm going up first, yelled Parker, but Kimber caught his arm. You have to do the ceremony first, or you'll disappear, she reminded him. That'd be fine with me, Kyle grumbled. I was eager to get into the fort myself. Give me the knife, I held out my hand. Kyle smiled and dug the switchblade out of his pocket. There's some space in the back for you to carve your name. I opened up the knife, walked around the tree looking for an empty spot. There were so many names on the tree that I had to crunch down and look near the bottom for a space since I couldn't reach any higher. I spotted both Kyle and Kimber's cravings on the tree, and I finally found a spot I liked near them. I bit my tongue and carved Sam W into a blank piece of bark underneath someone named Paul S. Parker went next, but had so much trouble with the knife that Kyle had to do it for him. Alright, let's go. I ran over to the top of the rope ladder. Wait, Kyle yelled. You have to say the words first. Oh yeah, okay, what are they? Kimber sang them out. Underneath the triple tree there is a man who waits for me. And should I go or should I stay? My fate's the same either way. That's creepy, I said. What does it mean? Kimber shrugged. No one knows anymore. It's just a tradition. Okay, can you say it one more time slower? Once Parker and I had recited the poem, we were ready to go. I climbed the rope ladder first and took stock of my new surroundings. The treehouse was more or less empty, just a dirty rug here and there and some trash, old soda cans, beer cans, and some fast food wrappers. I went room to room, 4 in total, and found nothing of real interest until the last one. An old mattress lay in the corner, and a pile of rusty, dusty, and ripped scattered clothes were all over the floor. Did a hobo live here? I asked. Nah, this room has been like that for as long as I can remember, Kyle said, the doorway behind me. It smells gross, I said. Kimber walked up to the threshold but refused to go any further. It's not the smell that freaks me out, it's that she pointed up to the ceiling and I raised my eyes to read what was written there. Road to the gates of hell, mile marker 1. What does it mean? I asked. It's just older kids being dicks, Kyle said. Come on, I'll show you the best part of the treehouse. We walked back into the first room and Parker looked up and smiled, pointing down to what he clumsily carved into the wooden floor. Fart, Kyle read. That's hilarious, Parker. He rolled his eyes at it, but his little brother didn't pick up on the sarcasm and smiled proudly. Kimber sat down on the floor next to Parker and I sat on the other side. Kyle took the knife from his brother and then walked across the room and wedged the blade between two planks of the wooden wall. He pushed it on the board and gave an opening a small steel compartment in the wall. Kyle took something out and pushed the plank back in until it was flush with the others. Check it out! He turned around proudly and held up 2 cans of Miller Lite beer. Whoa, I said. Ew, warm beer? That's gross. How did that even get there? Kimber asked. Bill Sanders told me. Are we gonna drink it? I asked. Hell yeah, we're gonna drink it. Kyle came and sat down in our circle, popped open the first beer and offered it to Kimber. She acted like he was coming to her with a dirty diaper. Come on, Kimmy. Don't call me that, she yelled, and reluctantly took the open beer. She smelled it and made a face, then pinched her nose and took a small swig. Kimber shuddered. That was even grosser than I imagined. I don't want any. I'll tell my mom, Parker said quickly as the beer passed in front of him. Good, cause you ain't getting any anyways, Kyle promised. And you won't tell mom shit. I put on my best poker face and took a deep, long swallow of the warm beer. I had the chance to smell it. It was a poor decision and I retched the foul yellow liquid all over my shirt. Aw man, now I'm gonna smell like beer. We spent the next hour and a half drinking the 2 cans of Miller Lite and after a while the taste grew more tolerable. I couldn't tell if I was becoming a man or actually getting drunk. I'd hoped it was the former. When the last drop of the last beer was consumed, we spent 20 minutes trying to determine if we were drunk. Kyle assured us that we had wasted while Kimber wasn't sure. I didn't think I was, but I failed all our drunk tests. Kimber was in the middle of reciting the alphabet backwards when a loud metallic grinding noise suddenly pierced the calm mountain air like a gunshot. Kimber stopped talking and we spent a few minutes staring at each other, waiting for the noise to end. Parker curled into Kimber and put his hands over his ears. After what seemed like 10 whole minutes, the sound ended as suddenly as it had begun. What was that? I asked. Parker mumbled something in Kimber's sweater. Do you guys know? I tried again. Kimber stared at her feet as she crossed and uncrossed them. Well, it's nothing, Kyle answered finally. We hear it sometimes in town. It's not a big deal. It's just louder up here. But what's making that sound? Borrasca, Kimber whispered without taking her eyes off their feet. Who's that? I asked. Not who. Where, Kyle answered. It's a place. Another town? No, it's just a place in the woods. Oh, bad things happen there, Kimber said to herself. Like what? Bad things, Kimber repeated. Yeah, don't ever try to find it, dude, Kyle said behind me, or bad things will happen to you too. But like what bad things? I turned around, Kyle shrugged and Kimber stood there and walked over to the rope ladder. We'd better go. I have to get home with my mom, she said. We climbed down the ladder one by one and then started walking back to the trail in an unfamiliar silence. I was dying of curiosity about Borrasca, but couldn't decide if I was about to ask them. So who lives there? Where? Kyle asked. Borrasca. The skinned man, Parker answered. Kyle laughed. Only babies believe in that. Like men who are skinned? Like their skin is gone? I asked excitedly. Yeah, that's what some say. Most of us stopped believing that though when we turn up to double digits, Kyle said. I looked back at Kimber, who was still 9, like me, but she was staring down the trail, ignoring us. That seemed to be the end of the conversation. By the time we reached our bikes, the awkwardness was gone, and we were giggling trying to decide if we'd be too drunk to bike home. School started 2 days later, and I completely forgotten about Borrasca. When my dad pulled up to the curb to drop me off that morning, he locked the door before I could get out. Not so fast, he laughed. As your father, I get privileged giving you a hug and telling you have a good first day of school. But Dad, I gotta go meet Kyle before the first bell. And you will, but still, give me a hug first. In a few years, you'll be driving to school yourself. Let me be your dad while I still can. Fine, I said, extra-baited, and leaned over to give him a quick hug. Thank you. Now go meet your friend. Your mom will be here waiting for you at 3:40. I know, Dad. Why can't I take the bus like Whitney? When you're 12, you can take the bus, he smiled. Unlock the doors. Until then, I get to drop you off in the mornings, okay? Kyle was already there waiting for me by the flagpole, and he found Kimber too. Dude, you almost missed the bell, he yelled at me. I know, I'm sorry. Whose class are you in, Kimber asked. She was wearing a red sweater and leggings with frogs on them. Her curly orange hair was brushed into ringlets and her lips were pink and shiny. She never looked prettier, and I was surprised to realize I'd never seen Kimber as a girl. Ah, Mr. Diamonds. Me too, she said cheerfully. Lucky, Kyle scoffed. I'm Miss Tedbury's, only 2 4th-grade teachers, and I get the crappy one. Kimber grimaced. Yeah, my mom said she had her when she was a kid. What's wrong with her? What did she say? Just she's strict and gives out homeworks on the weekends. On the weekends? Fuck! Excuse me, Mr. Landy? I immediately recognized the tall man that had suddenly appeared behind me. The white-faced Kyle. So sorry, sir. I meant dang. Kimber giggled. I'm sure you did, he nodded. Hi, Sheriff Cleary. Even though I'd only met him a few times, I like my dad's boss and he liked me. Well, hello, Sammy. Are you excited for your first day of school? Well, kind of, sir. It could be better. Well, you'll enjoy it. Just keep your head up. I'm giving a presentation to the 5th and 6th graders about safety when walking home from school. Yeah, he gives it every year, Kyle muttered. Cool, I smiled. Sheriff Cleary nodded at me and then turned around and walked away. I looked around, confused. Hey, where's Kimber? She took off. She's annoyingly on time to everything. And as to illustrate a point, the bell rang. We both went up the stairs and inside. I walked into class and saw Kimber had saved me a spot next to her at the back. Mr. Diamond, a short, round man, 40 or odd so, came up to me and said, Mr. Walker, I presume. Yeah, that's me. I mumbled as I rushed past him to sit next to Kimber. Welcome to Drisking Elementary, and the rest of you, welcome back. Go Grizzlies. The class echoed reluctantly. Go Grizzlies. Kimber introduced me to another kid in the class throughout the morning. Most of them were nice, if sort of underwhelmed by me. They said their hellos and asked me where I was from, and conversations usually ended with an unimpressed, oh, okay. A group of girls who sat near the front snuck looks at us all morning and snickered. I asked Kimber who they were and she just shrugged. During our second break, they came up and talked to me. Are you friends with Kimber Destro, a tall girl asked me. Yeah, I answered, and I looked over at Kimber. She was watching me with worried eyes. Are you related to her? No. I didn't think so because you don't have orange hair. I didn't know what to say to that. You don't want to be friends with her, you know, said the second girl with an oddly round face. I want to be friends with her. A third girl with the other two snorted. She had pretty auburn hair and a root up to her nose. Well, if you're going to be in the ugly kid group, the first girl warned, and once you're in that group, you can't leave. Better than the bitch group, I said. Rude nose and round face gasped, but dark hair smiled. We'll see, she said, and three returned to the corner of the room. I sat back down next to Kimber feeling like a badass. It was the first time I'd ever used a swear word in front of anybody other than Kyle. What did they say to you? Kimber asked nervously. They said you're too pretty to be near them and they're gonna make you look gross, so we have to stay away from you. Liar, Kimber answered, but I could tell she was smiling. We met Kyle in the cafeteria at lunch, and nothing but bad things to say about his morning. Miss Therese was an old and mean bitch, he said, and she made everyone come up and say something about themselves, even though the class had only 14 kids, and we all knew each other. When the bell rang for recess, I wanted to throw my lunch away, right at her face. Suddenly, I heard a kid behind me. Hey, are you Sam Walker? The kid asked. Yeah. Oh, your sister's dating my brother. Oh man, Kyle laughed. Your sister's dating a Whittaker? Shut up, Kyle, the kid grumbled. She's gonna be Whitney Whittaker. As funny as it is, I couldn't help but be a little surprised. Not that I'd be paying attention, but I'd only seen Whitney out of her room like once over this summer. Where did she meet him? I asked the Whittaker kid. I don't know. Probably at his job. His job where? He works at Dristing Water. It didn't make any sense to me, but I shrugged it off. I did remember my mom giving Whitney some menial tasks like getting the car washed and setting up some utilities to get her out of the house. Maybe she met him once when they started dating. Teenagers were weird. The rest of the school week followed much like the first. We were well into the first month when I heard something mention the Skin Man again. We were on the playground and Kyle and I were trying to start a fire with 2 large wood chips. I give myself a splinter when the distance the sound of metal ground on the metal floor of the playground, silencing every one of us. "Borrasca," I said in awe. "Yup," said Philip Sanders, "the Skin Man killed again." "Hey, Kyle," said, "only babies believe in the Skin Man." I threw an accusatory look at Kyle. "They do, Phil. It's stupid." "I am not," asked Daniel. "She's seen them." Phil scanned the playground, then yelled at a blonde girl talking to the rude noise. "Hey, Daniel, come here." The blonde girl rolled her eyes but came over skipping anyways. "What do you want?" "I told you, Kyla. Doesn't like you, Philip." "No, tell them about the Skin Man." Phil gestured to the air around us, which was filled with metallic scrapping coming down from the mountain. "You tell them." "No, you saw them, so you tell them." "I didn't see them. Paigey saw them." "Oh," Phil said. Uncomfortable sounds descended. "You guys are weird," Daniel said, before flipping hair in our face and leaving. "Who's Paige?" I asked when she's gone. "Her sister," Phil said. "Paige disappeared when we were like 5, Kyle said. "After she saw the Skin Man," Phil added. The sounds from the mountain abruptly ended, and the subdued atmosphere of the playground disappeared with it. When the bell rang, Kyle lined up in front of his class, and Phil got to class as well. The year dragged on, and it wasn't until Christmas break that I heard the machine of Borrasca again. It was December, and this was a thick blanket of snow on the ground, which only served to amplify the noise from the mountain. I sat in my room listening to it for a few minutes, trying to decide what was happening in the place that bad things happened. I saw my dad's cruiser pull up out the window and went downstairs to greet him. As I passed my sister's door, I heard her giggling in that annoying teenage girl way, and I cringed. I hope Kimber never got like that. "Dad!" I skidded on the landing just as he opened the door. My dad stomped off his snow boots and threw open his arms. "Sammy, how many years has it been?" he joked. It was true. I hadn't seen much of my dad lately. He was working so much. Doing what? I didn't know, since this was the quietest, lamest town ever. Mom thought the sheriff was grooming my dad for a job, since clearly he was so old and my dad never really had agreed or disagreed with her. He'd only been at the department 7 months. After all, he doubted people in the county would vote for him. "Hey Dad, do you hear that? Like the machine sounding noise?" "Yep, I hear it in town every day." "Do you know what it is?" I asked the sheriff about it and he told me it comes from the private property up in the Ozarks. "Is the property called Borrasca?" I asked quickly. "I have no idea." "Borrasca? Where'd you hear that?" I shrugged. "Well, the kids at school." "Well, it's nothing to worry about, Sammy. Probably just some logging equipment." "But is the place called Borrasca? Like, have you heard that name before?" No, I have not, son," my dad sighed. Dad pulled off his boots and shrugged his coat, looking towards the kitchen. I could tell I was losing him. "Have you ever heard of the Skin Man?" I asked quietly. "Skin Man? Good God, Sam. Is your sister telling you these stories?" "No, but..." He wasn't listening to me anymore. "Whitney!" he yelled. "No, Dad, Whitney doesn't ever talk to me," I repeated. I heard a door creak open and Whitney peer over the railing, phone in hand, an annoyed look on her face. "Are you trying to scare your brother?" Dad demanded. "Dad, no," I said again. Whitney shot me a betrayed look. "Ugh, seriously? As if I'd waste my time? You aren't telling him stories about the Skin Man." "No, Dad, I told you. I heard about it from school," I said. Whitney gestured to me as to say, "See? Alright. Well, you kids need to start getting along. You're family, for Christ's sakes." Whitney rolled her eyes, and when Dad walked into the kitchen, she stuck her tongue out at me. "Real mature, Whitney," I yelled up at her, but she was already gone. "I'll tell Dad about your boyfriend." Christmas came and went with surprising smoothness at our house. Whitney and I got everything we'd had on our list, which was a first for us. The town may be smaller, but Dad's paychecks were clearly better. I wore my new Rams parka on the first day back to school after Christmas break. Kyle fawned over it, and Kimber showed off her blue pearl necklace her mama got her for Christmas. Kyle and I had feigned interest but did it poorly. Kimber knew, but just seemed happy we cared enough to fake it. As we said goodbye to Kyle for the morning, Kimber was suddenly slammed from the side. Kyle caught her before she fell, and I spun around angrily to see the dark-haired girl, whose name I learned was Phoebe Danger, laughing and walking away from us with the round-faced girl. "You're bad people who make poor life choices," Kyle yelled at them. "When I'm your boss someday, I'll make you clean bathrooms." Yeah, and if Kyle's your boss, you know you messed up, I added. Kyle and I high-fived and turned to Kimber, but she wasn't sharing in our victory. She was trying to hide tears on her face. Don't sweat those girls. Kimber, nobody likes them. People are just nice to them because they're related to the Prescotts. Kyle tried to give her an awkward pat on the back, but Kimber turned away from him and ran in the opposite direction. I hate those girls. Like, I really hate them, I said. I know, they're bitches, Kyle answered, mouthing the last word as he looked over his shoulder for any lurking adults. Well, I better get to class and make sure they don't try to talk to her again. There's an assembly this morning. No class till after lunch. Seriously? That's awesome. Do we have to sit by class? Not usually, but we better get there quick so we can get the best seats at the back, Kyle said as we started walking. What's the assembly for, I asked. Well, it's either DARE or the History Society presentation. What's DARE? You know, DARE, as in you don't dare to do drugs until you're dead? Oh, I hope it's the history thing then. We found Kim already in the auditorium. She collected herself and saved both of us to see at the back of the room. She waved us over just as the puffy, stern Miss Terry walked on stage. Hello, 4th grade students! This morning we have a special presentation from your Historic Preservation Society of Disring. If you have any questions during the course of this lecture, please raise your hand. Like that'll happen, Kyle laughed. Now I'd like to introduce you to Mr. White Downing, Miss Catherine Scullin, and of course Mr. James Prescott. What? Jimmy Prescott and not his dad? That's so weird, Kimber whispered. Dude, the Prescotts have done this presentation every year for like 20 years, Kyle said. It's definitely weird. It's not weird, whispered Mike, stunned from behind us. He leaned forward. Tom Prescott went crazy like a year ago. He didn't do the presentation last year when his sister was here either. I don't like Jimmy Prescott, Kimber shook her head. He gives me the heebie-jeebies. His dad is so much nicer. He's like a grandpa. The presentation was slow and boring. Miss Downing and Miss Scullin talked about the first settlers here, the Cherokee, and the Trail of Tears. Then they talked about Alexander Distring's discovery of a motherlode of ore in the mountains and selling here with his family to mine and refine the iron. Then James Prescott took over during the story about his family's revolution in the town and how they revitalized it during the 50s. The last part was the most interesting of it all. I found Jimmy Prescott to be infallibly charismatic and entertaining. I was so busy laughing at his jokes and hanging on every word that by the end of his presentation I realized I'd actually learned quite a bit. So much so that I was interested to ask a question, which Kyle warned was committing suicide. Mr. Prescott scanned the room and answered a few questions before he finally got to me at the back. Yes, you in the back. Mr. Prescott, why did the mines close? Like, what happened? I asked. Very good question, young man. What did you say your name was? Ah, Sam Walker. Oh, I believe I met your father on the first day of the sheriff's office. Welcome to Drissing. As for your question, most of the mines were closed in the 1950s after a long period of unprofitability. The mountain had simply ran out of iron ore, the mills' refineries were abandoned, and the town suffered for years. The miners and the other families moved away, stores went out of business, schools closed, and Distring became a ghost town. That would have been at the end of it if it weren't for my stubborn families like mine who refused to leave. Refused to give up on the town, and after many, many years of hard work, Distring became the picturesque little haven in Ozarks that is today. I hope that answers your questions. I sat back down, and Kyle shook his head at me. Bro. The assembly suffered through another 15 minutes of awkward Q&As until Miss Tedevee finally cut us loose. We were released into the corner of the cafeteria to wait for the lunch lines to open up. Kyle, Kimber, and I sat in our usual corner. That was so boring, Kyle whined. When are they going to figure out that no one cares about Distring history? Seriously, I fell asleep like 3 times. Kimber nudged me. Sam seemed to care, she teased. I just wanted to know about the mines. Mines are creepy, that's all. Yeah, but all our mines are blown up. You can't go in them anymore, Kyle said. Blown up, I asked. Kimber nodded. Some kids died after going into the mine, so the city set off some control blasts to implode the caverns. At least that's what my mom said. They messed up though, and I heard they blew up the water table or poisoned it or something. What? How do you know about that, Kyle asked. Kimber shrugged. I heard my dad talking about it. Did they use C4 or something? I guess. So like, we all drink water, so we all have C4 in our bodies and we can explode any minute, Kyle said. I got excitedly. So like, we all drink water, so we all have C4s in our body and we could all explode at any minute, Kyle said excitedly. Do you think that's what's happened to all the missing people, I asked him. Just sitting there one day and boom! Yeah, dude, Kyle grabbed my shoulders. And that's where the skin men come from. I made the international symbol of mind blown, and we laughed hysterically. You guys are dumb. Kimber rolled her eyes, but then she laughed when Kyle fell on the floor pretending he was exploding. I remember thinking that in the moment I was happy here in Dristing, Missouri with these two people, happier than I'd ever been anywhere else. It was truly the last time I was happy. Less than an hour later, Mr. Diamond's phone rang and he exchanged a few quiet words with the person on the other end, his eyes flicking to me and from my desk. It was hard to be surprised. Then when he hung up and asked me to come up to the front. When I got there, he told me my mom was waiting for me in the office and I was going home for the day. I traded a confused and worried look with Kimber and then packed up my backpack and went to the office. When I got there, my mom was crying. We drove home in strained silence. I was too afraid to ask what was wrong. Mom parked a car a block from our house, which was blocked by several police cars. When an explanation didn't come, I broke the silence myself. Is it Dad? I asked quietly, holding back tears. No, honey. Dad is fine, she whispered. Then what happened? Whitney never made it to school this morning. Her voice broke over my sister's name. Oh no, Mom. I think she ditched, I said quickly. I saw her leaving this morning and it was really early, like 6, and she was with friends. Peter Whittaker and that kid Taylor. We know all about that, Sam, but they made it to school and Whitney wasn't with them. They said she wanted to stop by Clerk K near the Dristing High, so they left her there, and no one's seen her since. Well, my brain struggled to come up with an explanation. Maybe she's ditching. No, honey. My mom put the car back in drive and drove to our house, parking behind a police cruiser. The police as well as your father think Whitney is with Jay. But she has a new boyfriend here. We found all her books on the floor this morning and half her clothes gone along with some cash of your dad's. But right now we think she's hitched a ride to St. Louis and that she's with Jay. The sheriff's office is trying to contact the boy's parents now. Whitney? Run away? Anyone who knew my sister has known she was prone to dramatics and empty threats. Plus, she was dating Chris Whittaker and older brothers Pete, I was sure of it. We walked up the steps into a house filled with stale coffee and quiet murmurs. I tried to remember if Whitney had ever actually confirmed she was dating Pete, but I drew a blank. When we walked into the kitchen, I saw my father sitting at the table staring at phone records. Head in hand, he looked up when I came in the room and gave me a weak smile. Hey, buddy. Dad, I have something to tell you. I felt a heavy hand on my shoulder and turned up to look at the solemn Sheriff Clary. Everything and anything you might know, son, no matter how trivial you think it is. I nodded and sat down at the table with my dad as my mom handed the man a big cup of coffee. Here you go, Sheriff, she said weakly. Please, Mr. Walker, call me Mr. Killian. My mother nodded and retreated back to the darkened corner to talk quietly with Sheriff Sherrill's wife, Grace. What do you know, Sam? My dad asked as he rested his chin on his hand in a mock symbol as prayer, as though I may deliver him from his suffering. Well, I just heard Whitney had a boyfriend that this guy named Peter Whittaker she's been hanging out with, and I saw them and Taylor leave this morning. What time did they leave? Asked Sheriff. I don't know, like before 6? He nodded. That matches the statements of Taylor Drigger and the Whittaker boy. My father's head sunk lower in his hands, and I knew I'd let him down. But I rushed. I don't think she went back to St. Louis because she was dating Pete. I don't think she wanted to be with her boyfriend back home anymore. I understand that some, but teenage girls' minds is a complicated thing. My officers are trying to get a hold of a boyfriend's family back in St. Louis. Clearly nodded to my father. Now why don't you head to your room and let us work, Samuel? I looked up in surprise. What? No, I want to stay down here and I can help. No, son. There's nothing more you can do here. You've been a good brother. Now let us handle this. But I can help. You already have. Dad, I looked over at him, begging with my eyes. Go to your room, Sam, he said quietly after a moment. I balked. Dad, now! I was so angry I did the only thing I could, and out of myself of rage, I stomped upstairs, slammed the door, and then sat on my bed in disbelief. The tears came, and then I laid, feeling their helpless, worthless, and scared for my sister. I thought about all the places Whitney could be. Why was she scared? Was she alone? Was she dead? When the sun began to set, I finally got out of bed and went to go check my email. I was expecting lots of messages from Kimber and Kyle, but there was only one. Did she go to the treehouse? I didn't buy that Whitney had gone to the Circle K that morning, and I especially didn't believe that she'd hitchhike out of town. Nothing they were saying downstairs made any sense. If you knew my sister, but maybe this did. Maybe she did and her boyfriend went to the treehouse to make out or something, and maybe he left her there. Maybe she got lost, or maybe the skin man had found her. That was the worst thought of all. I didn't sneak out because the police were too busy with my parents to care about me anyway. I stuck my bike out of the garage and rode the 3 miles to West Room Prescott Ore Trail. When I got there, I saw 2 bikes already locked to the signpost and my 2 best friends sitting in the snow right next to them. I knew you'd come, Kyle said when I pulled my bike up and Kimber ran up to and hugged me. I'm so sorry, Sam. There was nothing for me to say, and they didn't push. Kimber took my arm and we started up the trail. The distance between us was stretched but comfortable. We trudged through the snow, and all the while I searched for the telltale footprints of others, but the snow was coming too fast. The hike up the mountain was harder and wetter than we'd come to, and fallen when Ambercott Fort finally came to the view of the ridge, it was a welcome sight. The sun was getting low and we hadn't bought flashlights. I fell as I ran up to the tree, calling my sister's name to the quiet wild. Kyle was right behind me and leapt impressively onto the rope ladder, climbing up quickly up the planks. I kept calling Whitney's name, waiting for Kyle to yell he'd found her or that there was some sign of her. And then I heard Kimber quietly say my name from where she stood at the triple tree. I ran over and tried to follow my eyes to confirm what I already knew was there, and then I found it, freshly carved near the top. Whitney W. My breath froze in my chest and the vision blurred with unwelcome tears, and as the sun took its last desperate breath before plunging into deep horizon, a deafening, metallic whirl sang out from the wilderness and spilled down the mountainside.